reigning. My name is Eileen Figueroa, National Treasure for Forward Latino. Today we gather not in celebration, but with a deep concern etched in our hearts, our democracy. We stand here today to affirm our unwavering support for Judge Dugan, who embodies the principles of justice and the rule of law, and to voice our profound opposition to any actions that undermine the Constitution. As we are united here today in one voice, we must carry that forward and use that voice to call upon our legislators. They represent us, and we must make our voice known and our presence felt. We know that our voices matter and that collective action can make a difference. So I ask that you keep that in mind. And at this time, I would like to bring up to the podium Renace President Patricia Ruiz Cantu, and First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee Senior Minister Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom.
Dear ones, will you pray with me? God of many names and beyond all naming, we gather here to share your love with our people, to pray for Judge Dugan, but also to pray for our democracy, to pray for immigrants, to pray for all the people of this nation, knowing that we are all made in your image. And we are here to serve you, to serve love, to be with one another. Holy One, help us remember who you are and who we are. Help us remember that democracy is about every single human being being made in your image. Help us remember how to love one another. Help us remember how to show up for one another, and help us remember that your love, that the love that is higher than all things, is greater than fear. May we be grounded, may we serve the love that is infinite, and may we remember that no finite human sin, no finite human error, no finite human evil is greater than your love which transcends all. And may we serve you, may we be not afraid, and may we show up for our neighbor, for the stranger, and for love. May it be so, and amen.
Los invito a orar conmigo. Señor, en este día venimos ante ti, reconociendo que tú eres el dueño de toda justicia justa. Ponemos en tus manos este momento y cada palabra pronunciada en esta mañana. Danos sabiduría para hablar con la verdad, con compasión, para tocar los corazones, y firmeza para hacer luz en medio de la oscuridad. Que todo lo que hagamos sea para levantar al caído, defender la dignidad de cada ser humano que refleja tu infinito amor. Guíanos en tu Espíritu Santo y que la esperanza sembrada hoy en cada corazón escuche esta necesidad. Venimos aquí a defender la justicia. Te recuerdo a cada uno de los que están escuchando. El Salmo 82 dice: defender al débil, al huérfano, haced justicia al afligido y al menesteroso. En el nombre del Señor Jesucristo te lo pedimos. Amén. And now I would like to introduce Ann Jacobs.
Thank you. Good morning. It is our privilege in the United States, and I would argue it is our duty, to hold our government to the highest of standards. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote,
that it is a religious duty to teach our children to ask questions. So must we as adults ask the questions that need to be asked. So let's take a look at the complaint filed against Judge Dugan with a skeptical eye. I want to highlight some of the key parts of the complaint. The most important one, the claim that somehow Judge Dugan obstructed law enforcement by letting the man in question leave a side door. Judge Dugan sent this man, according to the complaint, out to a public hallway where 2 law enforcement officers were waiting there. In fact, according to the complaint, as witnessed by the law enforcement officials who were standing there, he and his lawyer stepped out into the public hallway and looked around, presumably expecting to be arrested, but nobody came. The law enforcement officials watched him walk by, and in fact, one of them they went to the elevator, and one of those law enforcement officials got on the elevator with him. Eventually, they left the courthouse, and the gentleman was apprehended. The complaint itself ignores the obvious question. What would have been different had he exited by the main door? We know the answer. The answer is nothing. If they let him walk by from the side door, they were going to let him walk by through the main door. This is what I mean about looking at things with a skeptical eye. The people there to arrest him simply didn't. Instead of sticking to these facts, because they really don't show obstruction, the complaint tries to make even the most ordinary things sound nefarious. That the gentleman walked to the elevators, to the wrong bank of elevators. Anyone who has been in this courthouse knows that there are 2 banks of elevators, only one of which goes to the ground floor. You gotta pick which bank of elevators you're gonna use. They make a point of describing Judge Dugan, known in the courthouse as a tough and steely judge, as being, quote, angry. And how dare she walk quickly when she's got a calendar on misdemeanor court that day. When we look at the actual facts of this case with our skeptical eye, we can see how law enforcement is trying to make the ordinary sound improper. Nevertheless, the federal authorities took the stunning step of charging Judge Dugan despite their own narrative set forth in that complaint. Even more egregiously, they arrested Judge Dugan here at the courthouse, a public spectacle designed to humiliate a sitting judge, and then published a photograph of her in handcuffs on social media. Then, the government went to court and said she should be released because she wasn't a threat to the community. So why was she arrested in handcuffs? They were there for show. They were there to intimidate judges who might dare to do something that our current administration doesn't like. To chill the independence of our judiciary, to put them in fear of their own personal liberty should they take positions that may be unpopular with the government. It is our privilege and our duty to hold our government to the highest of standards. Those high standards are not seen in this complaint. They are not seen in the actions of arresting Judge Dugan. And it is my sincere hope that these charges against her are swiftly dismissed. I now have the privilege of introducing our Milwaukee County supervisors, and Caroline Gomez-Tom will be addressing them.
Hello everyone. I am standing here in front of you with my colleagues, Supervisor Steve Shea, Supervisor Sequana Taylor, and State Assemblywoman Sequana Taylor, Supervisor Felicia Martin, Supervisor Sky Capriolo, Supervisor Ann O'Connor, and Supervisor Jack Ekblad. And I'm Supervisor Caroline Gomez-Tom. And last week, Thursday, at our board meeting, we were able to pass a resolution to put limitations to the unlawful arrest within our court, and to make sure that our court would have a plan, a protocol in place to protect anyone all inhabitants of Milwaukee County from entering our building and any space where they are seeking county services. And this is in collaboration with the county executive, the chief justice, the sheriff's department, and our community. Because what we are meant to do, what our responsibility to do, is to uphold the Constitution and the Wisconsin Constitution. And we did that, 17 to 1 abstention. And the abstention was because they knew that they could not vote no against holding up the Constitution. And so we will continue to pursue that protocol, that plan to protect anyone entering our building. But what we're seeing here today is retaliation to us trying to do what is right, for us doing what is correct, and what also maintains the liberties of not just our immigrant communities, even though they are important and they are a representation of who I am, being the daughter of Mexican immigrants, but for every single person's rights. Because if we start to let the Constitution flee away from us, then we are actually losing all of our rights. So today, we're standing up for our immigrant community, we're standing up for Judge Dugan, but we are standing up for all of us. And that is how it should be. So with that, I pass it to our Register of Deeds, Israel Ramon, for his remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. It is my honor to be here this morning. I'm Israel Ramon, the Milwaukee County Register of Deeds. My office is responsible for the recording of all real property records in our county, as well as the issuance of all vital records such as birth, death, marriage, and divorce records across the state. We have seen unprecedented attacks on judges and other elected officials in the last 4 months. The goal is to intimidate and silence us. I will tell you this, I will not be silenced. As a Mexican American and the first Latino constitutional officer in our state since 1848, I will talk when things are wrong. And this is extra constitutional, unconstitutional, and it is wrong. As a lawyer of 31 years, I took an oath many years ago to protect both the federal and state constitution and to uphold the laws of Wisconsin. I will honor my oath. I will continue honoring my oath, and will make sure that everyone has access under the law to county facilities, especially my office. As an independently elected constitutional officer, I am the only person who has jurisdiction over the Milwaukee County Register of Deeds offices. I have issued a policy to assure access for all county residents to my office. The Board of Supervisors passed a resolution urging the county executive and the judiciary to create rules to honor our Constitution and to provide safe places for all of our county residents in the courthouse complex. I urge all elected officials to do what I have done and the county board has done without haste. The longer we wait, the more fear and uncertainty will prevail with our county residents, and that is simply wrong. The judiciary and the county executive take action now. Protect our county residents now. Not a week from now, not a month from now, but now. If the board can do it and I can do it, you guys can do it as well. If any county resident has concerns about any services that my office offers and are afraid or concerned to come to the courthouse and access services to my office, they can call my office at 414-278-4021. If they speak Spanish and want to speak with a Spanish-speaking individual, they can call our dedicated line at 414-335-0723. No one will be turned away from the Register of Deeds office unless they do not have a legitimate purpose to be in my office. I urge all county residents to call us if they have any fears or any concerns about coming to the courthouse. We have wonderful elected leaders in Milwaukee County, both supervisory and constitutional, and we want to make sure that we honor our oaths of office to make sure that we provide services to every county resident that needs it. However, until which time we have a cohesive policy between the judiciary the legislative branch of our county and the executive branch, we will have problems in making sure that the residents of our county are served. And we need to make sure that we are there for them and everyone, and we need to make sure that we continue to follow the law. Thank you very much. It is my great pleasure to now introduce State Representative Sylvia Ortiz-Velez from Assembly District 8.
Good morning. Good morning. Standing here with me today is Representative Supreme War Amakunde, Representative Supervisor Saquana Taylor, Representative Margaret Arney, Representative Christine Sinicki, Karen Kirch, and many that couldn't be with us here today. And as the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee in the state of Wisconsin, I am appalled on the assault of our Wisconsin state constitution by Federal Bureau of Investigation here in Milwaukee. I am calling on the federal government to adhere to the U.S. Constitution and to cease its illegal searches and seizures in our city as well as our state. Just recently, a memo was leaked dated March 14th, 2025, from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, allowing agents to illegally invade homes with no signed judicial warrants. That is a direct violation of our U.S. and Wisconsin's Constitution. We are entering an era of federal administrative lawlessness and heightened fear in our communities, not against violent criminals that we all agree should be off our streets with due process, but against our community members, our mothers, our fathers, our children, our business owners, and our taxpayers. And I would hope that if anyone would be breaking windows or illegally gaining entry into property, that they be investigated and charged or appropriate for violating our state laws. As Wisconsin state representatives and as a state, we must put residents of Wisconsin first. Wisconsin Democrats, we have a bill, AB 57, that would prevent the federal government overreach. This would apply to government spaces as well as schools, churches, daycare centers, and medical facilities. Wisconsin AB 57 would require that no official, employee, or agent of a state agency or other body in a state or local government may aid in the detention of an individual based on them not being lawfully present in the United States unless there's a judicial warrant. We are concerned about the ability of the state to deliver services required by our state constitution. If ICE agents or the federal government have a judicial warrant for an individual in our courthouse that they have validated as dangerous to the public, they should present it for full transparency instead of creating the lawless confusion and general distrust of the public spaces in Milwaukee County. When victims of crime don't come to the court or report crime, it does not make us safer. The federal government must follow state law and allow the state to deliver constitutional guarantees, including, but not limited to, due process, and not to violate our Constitution with federal overreach. As a state, we must ensure people have equal access to state services that are also housed here in Milwaukee County's courthouse. My main concern is for all government buildings that provide public services. They are now under threat. The federal government cannot be allowed to stand in the way of the state to ensure due process and the proper administration of justice for all. For Milwaukee and Wisconsin, abuse of power is not acceptable. Separation of powers must be maintained. Let's be faithful to our Constitution and the rule of law. Good, hardworking people deserve to be treated with dignity and have a pathway to citizenship. Fair wages and good working conditions. We need real and meaningful immigration reform from Washington, D.C. We are urging Congress and the President to move forward with solutions that secure our borders and work to reform our broken immigration system. And it's now my honor to have my Senator Tim Carpenter and Senator Chris Larson come up and speak. Thank you.
I'd like to also announce that State Senator Nora Drake is here also joining us along with the other representatives. America, we're in the beginning of a constitutional crisis. Trump's favorite words might be tariffs. My favorite words are due process. We are supposed to have 3 branches of government that check each other so not one branch dominates over the others. Donald Trump is a dictator. Through his executive orders, national emergencies, he's usurping all the powers. And the cowards of the GOP Congress are finally going to be back in session, and maybe they'll have the backbone to stand up and represent the people instead of having one individual who's hell-bent on deporting American citizens along with other people who don't get the chance of due process to prove that they're here legally or not. When they went ahead and put handcuffs on our good friend Hannah Dugan, they put handcuffs on the judiciary, the 3rd branch of government. So, Trump is the dictator. Cowardly Congress, the Congressional Congress, the Republicans are doing nothing. And now he wants to take out the judiciary. If he can do it here on these court steps in Milwaukee County, they will do it other places. It's all a matter of time. We are just simply asking due process. We don't want to deport 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds with cancer. If you look at the executive order, no one here would stand up and say it was right. Executive Order 9066. When 123,000 Japanese Americans were interned in camps during World War II. No one here can stand up and defend having a process in the 1950s where indeterminate numbers, probably tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Mexican Americans were deported to Mexico without any due process. They rounded them up and threw them across the border. America, we're in a constitutional crisis. We have to stand up to Donald Trump, and we have to support our last chance in our judiciary. Next, I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine and strong supporter, Senator Chris Larson.
Also, Tim. Thank you. My voice is a little hoarse because I haven't stopped speaking up about this since Friday. So if I sound a little different, that's why. But it's important to give voice to Hannah Dugan and to everybody who is trying to be bullied by this administration. A country doesn't move from a democracy to an autocracy overnight. It doesn't happen like it does in a history book where it flips from one page where things are fine and the next page they're handing out the armbands. Instead, it's through many small and unanswered actions over time where we alienate all of our world's allies. where universities are threatened with federal funds, where states are threatened with their federal funds, where law firms are extorted for free payment of services, where students are threatened and their free speech is taken away, where public servants are muted and asked weekly what they are doing while being told nothing to do while being fired, where Congress is bullied into disappearing, where we have not had Republicans hold a town hall in this state since the Biden administration, where the Pentagon has been muted from speaking out, even though they have their DUI hire continuing to text war plans over Signal. We are pushing back though. Now they're coming back for the courts is the next step. To be clear, no one is above the law in America and everyone is entitled to due process. The arrest of Hannah Dugan is an effort by Trump to demonstrate a number of things to move us towards authoritarianism. He's activated his Justice Department. One is he's activated his Justice Department to serve political goals and bully his political enemies. Let's be clear, the announcement for this arrest came via Twitter from the conspiracy-addled brain of the current FBI Director Kash Patel, not from experienced field agents here in Milwaukee. Throughout our country's history, the Attorney General administered the law without political influence or direction. Despite giving sworn testimony before the Senate that she would not politicize the Justice Department, AG Pam Bondi was on right-wing news outlets on the day of Hannah's arrest, holding up her picture in shackles and smearing her character, threatening other judges who might get in the way of Trump's illegal and unconstitutional action, saying, "We will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you." If that doesn't send a shiver down your spine, you gotta wake up. Trump is hoping that through his bullying and outsized response to Judge Dugan, he can have a judiciary that obeys in advance. Do not obey in advance. Trump and his administration are trying to claim a high ground that they have abandoned long ago. The Trump administration is currently in violation of a court order and celebrating it. Trump himself obstructed justice and lied to the FBI when they were seeking stolen classified documents he held at Mar-a-Lago. In that case, Trump was successful at bullying a judge to delay justice, Judge Eileen Cannon. Considering that this is the most lying administration in the history of the presidency, what are the odds that they are lying about this and destroying Hannah Dugan's life? Hannah, by the way, for people who don't know her, she is somebody who literally celebrates Constitution Day and Bill of Rights Day. She will send you, if you are on her email list, no other politician, no other elected official is out here celebrating Citizens Day when people become citizens in this country. That is who Hannah Dugan is to her core. And the idea that she doesn't know the law, but we are supposed to trust ICE under Trump's direction, when we know that last week, ICE agents made an arrest at a courthouse without identifying themselves as agents and loading a suspect into a van that was unmarked and refusing to say who they were, what their agent numbers were, what their authority was, or where they were taking them. This was last week. And we're expected to believe that they followed every step of the law in this case against Hannah Dugan, who is the most soft-spoken person. She's the first person, let's be real, she's the person who's going to bring the best dish at the potluck. That's what Hannah Dugan, that's the kind of person they decided to go after. For the record, I messaged her today, she messaged back that she's doing okay, which says a lot, because she's not trying to beat her chest about this, she is just saying, I am okay, and she knows that we're out here standing up for her. Also, for the folks who are still trying to decide which side to take, the lying con man or the Constitution-loving, Catholic-adhering, soft-spoken judge, do we really believe that Trump's goon squad is actually following their own protocols? We know what we are seeing isn't right, and it's time to step out, speak up, and get involved as you never have before. These aren't signs of coming authoritarianism. This is not a trial run. Trump and his allies are looking to turn us away from everything America represents and are looking to turn us into countries like Russia. The only way it stops is if each of us stop pretending this is normal and each person does their part to stop him by speaking out. I implore you to do what you can with what you've got wherever you are. Do not look away. Do not obey in advance. And do everything you can to push back against this un-American attack on our country. With that, I turn it over to a leader in the Common Council, Alderman and Common Council President, Jose Perez.
Thank you. Buenos dias. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here standing with all my community partners and electeds. You've often heard 1,000 times that Milwaukee is the engine that powers Wisconsin. And you hear it because it's true. And it's true, verified by every financial and economic metric out there. And what do you think is powering Milwaukee, you might ask? Especially in my automatic district, is the immigrant community. Powered by creating density, population stabilization, powering by one of the most American things ever with their families, starting businesses and serving the broader community. They pay off their loans without default, and paying taxes and being part of this community's fabric is important to them. I surmise that in part, this is due not only to the immigrants being hardworking, but they understood before, and I will say this, before these un-American roundup tactics, that they have very little margin for error. And even though my district is still growing and Latinos make up over 20% of the Milwaukee's population, we also have a large Asian community that is making Milwaukee their home and adding to the pursuit of the American dream. And with that said, with the charging and detaining of Judge Dugan, many are viewing the American dream as the dream that's becoming deferred. We must protect our Constitution. Many Wisconsin residents are already afraid to go to work. Parents are afraid to send their children to school, and that having involvement in our judicial system will be deteriorated from appearing in court. I mean, what do you think the detaining and charging of Judge Dugan does to our community when they're already afraid of these tactics in our community? But we must continue to demand that judges be afforded the latitude to complete their role as part of carrying out this Constitution. And this should be done without fear and intimidation. All of our residents deserve the same opportunity, including allowing their cases to be completely adjudicated before they face further penalties. We must not relent. Let's stay focused on the constitutional provisions afforded to all the residents in this country, and we will prevail. The council is committed to reject intimidation, to reject fear. We embrace our Constitution. We must keep our power separated, and we know that our hope is in democracy. We must fight for it. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and let's keep fighting. With that, it is my honor to introduce the NAACP Branch President, Clarence Nichols.
Good morning. This is the day we must begin to organize a strategy to address and codify an immigration policy that will be transparent in the state of Wisconsin, Milwaukee County, and the city of Milwaukee. In the city of Charlottesville, Virginia, a man was arrested who's an immigrant by federal immigration authorities after the courtroom judge dismissed all charges against him. This case is being closely examined for the proper judiciary transparency. The Milwaukee Branch NAACP has an Honorable Lord A. Bobby Foundation, Inc., with 2 lawyers, in addition to requesting help from the state and national NAACP to work with the state of Wisconsin, the county of Milwaukee, and the city of Milwaukee, as well as government officials, to meet with the FBI and with Trump's administration to develop a humane approach that works best in the interests of our public. The organizations here today, along with interested parties present, must convene in a manner that will allow us to codify a humane policy that we can communicate to the FBI authorities and the Trump administration that seeks common ground for our large community's best interests. The Milwaukee branch NAACP is open to hosting the first meeting to begin such a process. And thank you very much. At this time, I would like to introduce Wisconsin Ukrainian founder and president, Helena Salapate.
Good morning. My name is Helena Salapata, and I'm a founder and president of Wisconsin Ukrainians, largest pro-Ukrainian nonprofit of Wisconsin, and the Midwest advocacy team leader for Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Today is not an easy day. We are gathered here because of the difficult news. But I want to take a moment and speak from my heart about someone who has stood by our community with unwavering support, Judge Dugan. Judge Dugan has been a true friend of the Ukrainian community in Milwaukee. Over the past 3 years, as we organized rally after rally, often in cold, rain, snow, she was there. Not once or twice, every time. She stood with us, and she stood for the values we share: freedom, justice, and democracy. Since the very first day of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Judge Dugan was there. She stayed with us, shoulder to shoulder, with Ukrainians, and not only. She didn't just show up, she stood for freedom, for justice, and for the people of Ukraine. At our most recent rally in February 2025, marking 3 years of war, Judge Dugan shared with us a memory that touched many hearts. She spoke about her time in Ukraine years ago, when she joined a team from Wisconsin to share insights on constitutional law and America's democratic traditions. She told us, all of these post-USSR republics were hungry for democracy and freedom. We continue to see their commitment to freedom, to liberty, to self-determination, to the rule of law. I urge you to continue to fight with Ukrainians and offer support however you're able. Those words meant so much to us because they are spoken with deep understanding and real compassion. Today, we remember that true friends are not abandoned in hard times. Judge Dugan stood with us, and today we stand with her. With gratitude, with respect, and with the hope that better days are ahead of us. Thank you. And it's a big honor to introduce you to Wisconsin Council of Churches Executive Director, Reverend Dr. Carrie Parker. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carrie Parker. As the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of Churches, I have the opportunity to represent 23 Christian traditions in the state of Wisconsin. That's about 2,000 churches and 1 million Christians. I'm here today with my colleagues to speak on behalf of justice and righteousness and the responsibility of true leaders in caring for those among us who are in need. Last week, the arrest of Judge Dugan was witnessed with horror nationwide. This is not how moral leaders settle disputes over facts or priorities. It is not how we care for the vulnerable among us. What we have seen in recent weeks is an escalation of state-sanctioned violence, shortcuts to predetermined ends, and gratuitous bullying we would never tolerate by or around our children. Why then do we tolerate it from our elected officials and those they appoint to represent them? We cannot care for vulnerable people if places of law are made lawless, if places for seeking justice are made disorderly and unpredictable. We can have compassion and charity and respect for the law. Judge Hannah Dugan once served at Catholic Charities. She understands this balance. The faith tradition I follow, and many of these officials purport to follow, has many teachings about the rights of the accused. Stories about the importance of facing one's accusers, even an extravagant number of opportunities to plead one's case. A moral community knows brokenness when it sees it. It questions propaganda. It demands a fair hearing and expects the truth. So we call out these threats for what they are. They are the work of bullies, and they endanger lives. They endanger the rule of law. They are abhorrent, foolish, and unworthy of leaders. Verbal, physical, and spiritual violence are being perpetrated daily upon our neighbors by representatives of our own government, while faithful public servants close to home seek to uphold the rule of law. Violence and distortions by this regime are a burden upon our common life. They go beyond all reason. Leaders, we call you to your highest self and demand accountability for these disproportionate actions. It's my honor to introduce my friend and colleague, Bishop Paul Erickson of the Greater Milwaukee ELCA.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Karen. Good morning. I recognize that there might be some folks among us here today who wonder why I, a faith leader, along with other faith leaders here today, are speaking out about what looks to be a very secular legal issue. Well, that's true. I am not an expert in the technical distinctions between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant. I don't know all the rules and regulations that govern this courthouse. I wasn't present that day, and I have no firsthand knowledge of the facts of this case. But let's be clear. If we had an administration that cared about the facts of this case and the rule of law, we wouldn't be here today. Yes. What we have is an administration that seems intent on acting like a bully, seeking to incite fear and division by engaging in strong-arm tactics and trampling on our civil rights. The U.S. Constitution guarantees due process for every resident of this country, not just citizens. And this courthouse needs to be a place where everyone who lives in Milwaukee County can come to make their case and be heard. And when the FBI and ICE swoop in and ignore our fundamental freedoms, we need to stand strong and we need to stand together. Judge Dugan was simply doing her job, putting herself on the line to protect the rights and freedoms that we all hold dear. So we need to stand with her, and we need to stand with all who are committed to making this country a place of safety, dignity, respect, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. And I'll invite former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Wisconsin, Jim Santel.
Thank you, Bishop. We are gathered today to talk about judges. It is significant to note that 11 days ago, a judge named Harvey Wilkinson. He is of the United States Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit. Those are the mid-Atlantic states in our nation, issued a recommissioning of what we are about in America, restating what James Madison said 238 years ago, a document that should be read not only by every American, but also should be taught in civics classes in high schools and colleges and universities. He was resolving an issue before him and other panel members that had come up based upon the deportation of a singular Maryland gentleman out of this country. Judge Wilkinson wrote this. He said, the basic differences between the branches of the federal government mandate a serious effort at mutual respect. The respect that courts must accord the president must be reciprocated by the president's respect for the courts. Too often today, Judge Wilkinson wrote, this has not been the case, as calls for the impeachment of judges for decisions the president disfavors and exhortations to disregard court orders sadly illustrate. What is Judge Wilkinson talking about? He's talking about the fact proceedings in other federal district courts around this country. Let me name and describe for you 3 of them. For the past 6 weeks in United States District Court in the District of Columbia, our nation's capital, a judge, the chief judge, named James Boasberg, has attempted mightily to secure basic information from your Department of Justice, from your Attorney General, from the federal lawyers who serve on your behalf to get information about 238 deportees to El Salvador. Your government, your Attorney General, my Department of Justice, for which I worked for 30 years, has refused to tell Judge Boasberg anything of material significance about any of that, prompting Judge Boasberg to say, just in recent days, that your United States government is acting in bad faith. And he is within inches today, as he has been in recent days, to finding the United States Department of Justice in contempt of court. In another court in Maryland, Judge Paula Zinnes, who, yes, has been presiding over the case involving Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, has likewise described the conduct of the agency for which I worked for 3 decades as being willful and bad faith refusal to provide her with information and basic substance about what has happened to this former resident of the United States of America. And she too is within moments of finding the United States government in contempt of court. Even more recently, 5 days ago, another judge named Stephanie Gallagher, she is also in Maryland. She has identified yet another individual, just as Christian, and she has described the actions of your government, my Attorney General, my President, as being in violation of a court settlement with respect to his status here in the United States of America. She too, like Judge Boasberg and like Judge Zinnes, is on the road to finding that the conduct of the attorneys who serve on your behalf is in violation of basic standards of the rule of law and undermining and abrogating their oath of office. To date, the response of my Attorney General, Pamela Bondi, of my President, Donald Trump, and of others in government has been to say to these judges, Judge Boasberg, Judge Zinnes, and yes, most recently to Judge Gallagher, the answer, judges, is no. I will not do that. We will not do that. And they're sending the attorneys into those courts, places of justice, the federal courts in this country on your behalf, declining to tell those judges the information that they need to make rational and reasonable and balanced decisions about how we apply the Constitution of the United States of America to people in our land. There are other federal judges around the country who have done the same, who have also approached that point at which they are about to say that this administration, this president, and other members of the executive branch are not only in contempt, but are violating the basic standards by which the judiciary works. Senator Carpenter, it is a constitutional crisis. We have passed that point, and although it is significant to name it as you have, appropriately, for all Americans, including all of us gathered here today in this wonderful, amazing place we call Milwaukee, this spectacular state we call Wisconsin, it is important, yes indeed, Senator, to name it as that, but that doesn't get us to the point we need to get to. It doesn't answer the fundamental questions about what do we do next when we have a president, my president, who is indeed, as Judge Wilkinson has said, calling for the impeachment of judges, not on any legitimate basis under our Constitution, but rather on the basis that he does not agree with the decisions they make. And he is engaged in name calling with respect to them. We have an Attorney General, my Attorney General, who has not just wiped away the arm's length relationship that necessarily has existed for well over 200 years between the White House and the Department of Justice when it comes to making specific referrals for criminal prosecution. She has invited the 2-3 times in which this president has told the Attorney General that he wants to see investigated and arguably prosecuted in federal courts specific individuals, contrary to 2 centuries of tradition of presidents of your history. And she has also said that those unelected judges, federal judges, have no power. The judges she has identified include Judge Boasberg and Judge Zinnes and Judge Gallagher. No power to tell us what the law is. That decision, that milestone was made in the early part of the 19th century when a previous Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court said, it is decidedly the purview of the judiciary to tell us what the law is. And my Attorney General has rejected that notion. There is another representative of this administration. He is the border czar. His name is Tom Homan, who has said, we're coming. We don't care what judges say. And all of that is a part of this, not just contempt, not just the constitutional crisis, but quite literally the fraying, the destruction of the very fundamental systems by which our country has been established. And so what do? Every single person who's spoken here today has been asked that same question. What do we do? What do we do in response to all of this? Well, indeed, once again, we go back to what Judge Wilkinson has said 11 days ago. He said this, now the branches come too close to grinding irrevocably against one another in a conflict that promises to diminish both. This is a losing proposition all around, he says. The judiciary will lose much from the constant intimations of its illegitimacy, to which by dint of custom and detachment, we, meaning the judiciary, can only sparingly reply. The president will lose much from a public perception of his lawlessness and all of its attendant contagions. The executive may succeed for a time in weakening the courts, but over time, history will script the tragic gap between what was and all that might have been in America, and law in time, the judge said. The Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit said, law in time will sign its epitaph. It is, as he concluded, all too possible to see in this case a crisis. He acknowledges what Senator Carpenter and Senator Larson and I acknowledge today, a constitutional crisis. That is the law of this case, articulated by a judge of the United States Court of Appeals. He said, but it may also present to us an opportunity, and that is the answer in part to the question, what do we do? Judge Wilkinson said, we yet cling to the hope that it is not naive to believe our good brethren in the executive branch, that's the president, that's the Attorney General, that's the Director of the FBI, and all of the other cabinet members who are responsible for the enforcement of the laws in our nation, my nation, your nation. It is not naive to believe that our good brethren in the presidency and the executive branch perceive the rule of law as vital to the American ethos. This case presents their unique chance to vindicate that value and to summon the best that is within all of us while there is still time. What is he saying to us? What is the practical thing that all of us advocate for you to do today? What is a United States Court of Appeals, not Jim Santel, not an opinion piece, not anyone else but the United States Court of Appeals, what are they telling us today? What is Judge Wilkinson saying? What is Judge Zinnes saying? What is Judge Boasberg saying? What is Judge Gallagher saying? She is saying, yes, indeed, articulate those things that have been important to us for 238 years, but also demand better. And how do you do that? Yes, indeed, you write letters to the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. You write letters to those people in the United States Department of Justice, including Pam Bondi and the Deputy Attorney General. You write letters to the President of the United States of America, demanding better, demanding that they take up the language and the admonition of Judge Wilkinson. And then you go beyond that. In those calls, those visits that you may make to, yes, indeed, not just federal authorities, but also state representatives, local representatives, you consistently articulate a view that this is not acceptable, as Judge Wilkinson has said. And then we've got an opportunity here to do better. And it means also that in every single conversation that you have today, with your family, with your coworkers, with your neighbors, with all of us gathered here today, you say the same things and you engage in decent and common and respectful conversation that articulates not just what Judge Wilkinson has said, but what the Constitution said and what James Madison and George Mason said 238 years ago. You make that case one-on-one, in small groups, in large groups alike, every conversation, every communication. You recommit every day in everything that you do to ensure that those messages are clear. And then you also do something else. And that is you write to Judge Wilkinson, and you write to Judge Zinnes, and you write to Judge Boasberg and Judge Gallagher, and tell them, although they will not respond to you, because as Judge Wilkinson said, they cannot do that, but you write them a letter in the courts of appeals and in the district courts, and you tell them, we appreciate your support of the Constitution and the basic things that have animated our nation ever since our great-great-great-great-grandparents have been here. You tell them that as well, to provide them with the support that they need to ensure that these kinds of things continue to be articulated in every single order that they issue. Pam Bondi has an office. I have been there, not in her office, but in other offices. Very proud to have worked for many attorneys general, including Janet Reno and Eric Holder. I have been there on the 7th floor of the United States Department of Justice. It is one of those 1935 buildings. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue. You have not visited there inside because it's just lawyers inside. There's nothing to see there much, but there's a great deal of activity going on inside and also outside. Inscribed on the outside in the granite of that building since 1935 have been these words: before justice can exist in the conduct and the conscience of a government, it must first reside in the hearts and the souls of its citizens. Before justice can exist in the conduct and the conscience of a government, it must first reside in the hearts and the souls of its citizens. That is what is inscribed on the outside of your Department of Justice. And that is you. That is what Judge Wilkinson is saying to all of us, and that is the commission that he and all the other judges are giving us every single day, to continue to ensure that the basic rights and responsibilities that we hold dear remain a part of our nation before, as he said, it is too late. It is my great honor to present now at this time the gentleman who brings us all together today. He is the National President of Forward Latino, my colleague, my friend, my great American, Daryl Morin.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming out today. Appreciate you staying here throughout this event. It's plain to see this has impacted every corner of our great state. I'd like to invite Patricia Ruiz-Cantu and Aline Figueroa, also officers of Forward Latino, to stand up here with me. Shortly after this press conference, we're going to be boarding a plane and we're going to be going to this nation's capital, and we're going to make the case that our Constitution does stand for law and order and must be followed. So, once again, my name is Gerald Modine, National President of Ford Latino. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit and advocacy organization with members and affiliates across 29 states. I want to begin by saying thank you to all of these leaders from various political leanings, from various political or professional lives who've come together today to support our immigrant community, to support Judge Dugan, and who have come together to defend the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. Let's give them all a round of applause. As a nonpartisan organization, Ford Latino has always welcomed dialogue and exchange of ideas. We've worked with leadership in both political parties. Sadly, there are those in government, though, today who are seeing the wrong that is occurring and are refusing to act, on their constitutional and sworn oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. Yes, it's fine to say, it's true, there is overwhelming support to remove individuals found guilty of committing violent and drug-related crimes for the country. The nation agrees on this. However, that is not what is happening today. Under this administration, we are seeing individuals who came to the U.S. just seeking an opportunity to provide for their families and to raise them in a place that is safe. We see them being deported to CICOT, the prison in El Salvador. And we've all seen it on the daily news, nightly news. We hear the administration calling each one of them murderers, drug dealers, and even terrorists. Yet the government's own reports show that approximately 90% of all those we've sent to CICOT have no criminal record. Let me say that one more time. Approximately 90% of all those deported to CICOT have no criminal record. In the case involving Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a man the government admitted it wrongly deported to CICOT, instead of working to bring them home, what did they do? They went to the Supreme Court demanding the right to leave him there. So today, instead of being at home with his family, he sits in the cell in one of the most notorious prisons the world's ever known. Daily, we are hearing and learning of children being wrongly deported without receiving any due process. And yesterday, we learned that some of those children are fighting cancer. Is that what we've become as a nation? I think we all know the answer to that. Daily, we're learning of U.S. citizens and others lawfully present in the United States being detained for extended periods of time, even after they've proven they're United States citizens. Let me say that again. Even after they've proven they're United States citizens, they've been denied their freedom. That should enrage every American, regardless of party. Tom Homan, who was referred to earlier, the self-proclaimed border czar, felt so emboldened that he went on Fox News and, I quote, said, "I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the judges think." We saw a manifestation of this belief just here last week at the Milwaukee County Court House when they arrested Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan. Let me state clearly that Ford Latino is confident that once all the facts come forward, she will rightfully be exonerated of both charges. The FBI's agents use what's called an arrest for effect strategy. It's used to bully and intimidate an individual or group of individuals into submission. They came to arrest Judge Dugan, not at her home, but at the courthouse. They came with overwhelming force so they could subdue and arrest this 65-year-old female judge. Equally troubling is the fact that the FBI director was apparently waiting in his office for the news so he could quickly get it out on Twitter. He wasn't tweeting about the FBI capturing a spy master or neutralizing a terrorist threat. No, he wanted to boast about subduing and arresting a 65-year-old female Milwaukee County judge. It brings me no pleasure to say this. It really doesn't. But leadership has failed the men and women of the FBI, who are patriots all, Americans working day in and day out, often at great personal risk, not for some political agenda, but to keep us all safe. They deserve an apology. The country deserves an apology. And yes, Judge Hannah Dugan deserves an apology. The judiciary is an independent branch of government. The courts are the final arbiters of what is lawful and unlawful. Our founding fathers put them in there to defend our rights, our freedoms, and the Constitution. So for those watching at home, if you love your country, if you love our country, if you love freedom, you can no longer sit on the sidelines. This is too important. You must make your voices heard. We implore all of you to call 202-226-8000 and tell your senators and tell your representative to fulfill their sworn oaths to defend the Constitution of the United States. Tell them to use their congressional powers of oversight and the power of the purse to force this White House to stop attacking our courts. Thank you all for coming out once again. Thank you to all your great leaders and supporters and organizations. I also know we have the ACLU Wisconsin here. Where are you? Here we go. Thank you very much, Rob Cox, for coming out to join us. But last, I want to say God bless our hardworking, God-fearing immigrant community. God bless Judge Hannah Dugan. And God bless the United States of America, which we will ensure continues to be the beacon of opportunity and justice and freedom for the entire world. Thank you all once again for coming out today. Well, now we will all be available for any interviews. Thank you all again for coming out today. Oh.
Yeah, my name is Nelson Goodson from Hispanic Youth Network USA, and I know all of you talked about trying to do something about stopping this. My question is for all the representatives and who's here, are you gonna adopt what the governor adopted for the state workers and agencies, saying how to handle judicial warrants and administrative warrants?
Yeah, I'd encourage you to talk to the representatives of each branch, and they'll answer that question for you. Any other questions? Thank you all once again for coming out today.
Give us that number again.